Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Bratcher. I'm going to be talking to you this morning a little bit about human trafficking. Human trafficking is a very real global and local problem that goes on around us every single day, and there's some very simple steps that we can take to uh, battle human trafficking, such as educating ourselves as the signs for people that are being coerced and exploited to do work for very little to no money. And we can also just simply care enough to stand up and say something if we see anything. The Lord tells us in John 15:12, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you." Human trafficking in no way displays how God intended for us to treat each other. Imagine, if you will, a parent in the middle of a Nike store buying a set of cleats for their young child that's getting involved in sports. Odds are those cleats were probably made in a third world country by a child that was the same age or younger for about and is paid for about $5 a day. It's a very sad fact, but it was discovered back in 2001 that Nike had been buying materials and finished products from third world country contracted facilities that in countries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh, where they still use child labor to keep their costs down and their profits up. Human trafficking is often associated with third world countries as a distant problem. However, we have people working in plain sight every single day in America that are being coerced and exploited to work for little to no money. I myself have been to South Korea for a total of about 2 years in my Air Force career, and we have several areas that are off limits, such as bars and shops, because they do use human trafficking to keep their businesses running. These people are brought into the country under false pretenses, threatened with deportation and physical harm, and receive very little money for what they do. Human trafficking is not a problem that affects Human trafficking is a problem that affects people every single day, and we need to do our part to report what we see and help those people that are being affected by this crime against humanity. I'm going to cover some facts behind human trafficking, as well as some of the principles that God has laid out, how we should treat each other as well as ourselves, and I'm also going to talk about where you can report anything that you see. This brings me to my first point. Human trafficking is a real problem that affects our world every day, and here's a couple statistics behind that. The International Labor Organization has several stats that are very eye-opening concerning human trafficking. One of which is that between 2000 and 2005, roughly 700,000 women and children were imported into America to work for little to no money. These people worked up to 16 hours a day, were physically abused, beaten. Some reports include forced abortions. These people also worked for no money to very little money. The work that these people did could be anywhere from being a servant in someone's home to being forced into prostitution. This brings me to my second point. Human trafficking violates God's original intent for how we should treat ourselves as well as how we should treat our brothers and sisters. 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20 tells us to flee from sexual immorality and that our bodies are temples for the Holy Spirit to dwell in, and that we should honor God with our bodies. Along with this line of thinking, as well as Matthew 7:12, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. This is what we know as the golden rule, and this is how God would have us treat each other, not by human trafficking. There's some very simple measures that we can use in our day-to-day life to help and assist people that might be a victim of human trafficking. Simply educating yourself to the signs of human trafficking is one way. Some of the signs include workers living with their employer, multiple people living in a very cramped space, signs of physical abuse, and very submissive and very fearful employees that can cower whenever you come around or when the employer comes around. Reporting a suspected victim is essential if you witness anything that raises a flag concerning human trafficking. The National Human Trafficking Resource Center has established a 24/7 hotline that you can call to report any suspicious activity, and that number is 1-888-3737-888. So in conclusion, I'd like to ask everyone to realize that human trafficking is not an invisible crime. It happens around us every single day. We've talked about human trafficking and how it's a real problem globally as well as locally. Covered some principles that God has set forth concerning how we should treat ourselves and how we should treat others. And we also went over some of the ways to spot human trafficking and where to report that. Please just be aware of your surroundings, and if you see someone being coerced or forced to do something against their will, stand up and be that voice that helps them out of that horrible situation. Human trafficking is not a problem that's just isolated in third world countries. We see it every day in America, we see it in our country, we see it in our states, and also in our local communities. Please do your part to help those people out. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much for your time.